Picture this, it's 1588, and Spain rules the world. Gold and silver pour into Madrid from the Americas, in amounts so vast they make today's billionaires blush. The Spanish Navy controls the seas, their currency is the global standard, and their citizens believe their dominance will last forever. But fast forward just 50 years, the empire is bankrupt, the currency's worthless, soldiers aren't being paid, rebellions are breaking out everywhere. The unthinkable has happened, Spain has collapsed from within. Now, what if I told you this wasn't random, that there's a repeating pattern, a 5-stage sequence that's destroyed every major empire in history? Spain followed it, Britain followed it, the Soviet Union followed it, and right now, the United States is sitting at stage 4. The scary part, almost nobody living in these empires ever saw it coming. They were too busy with daily life, too distracted by politics or entertainment to notice the signs. They thought each crisis was temporary until one day. It wasn't. Once you understand this 5-stage pattern, you'll never look at world events the same way again. Empires don't just fall in history books, they collapse around real people. People who lose their savings, their jobs, their homes, sometimes even their freedom. When this pattern completes, nobody is spared. Not the rich, not the poor. And this isn't about politics. It's about recognizing a historical cycle that's repeated for thousands of years, across different nations, cultures, and economies. Rome, China, the Ottomans, Spain, Britain, the Soviets, they all went through it. Here's what's at stake. When an empire reaches the later stages, its currency collapses, wealth gets concentrated at the top, political systems break down, and ordinary people lose the ability to plan for the future. Understanding where we are in this cycle isn't about fear, it's about preparation. By the end of this story, you'll know all 5 stages, how to spot them, and where America fits into the sequence right now. So let's begin. Every empire's decline starts the same way, with overconfidence, a sense that they're untouchable. They expand their military far beyond their borders, spending more than they can ever afford, believing their dominance justifies any cost. Spain did it, trying to control 4 continents at once. Britain did it, maintaining bases and colonies around the globe. The Soviet Union did it too, pouring nearly 20% of its economy into its military machine. For the United States, that phase began after World War II and exploded after 2001. Today, America has around 750 military bases in 80 countries and spends more on defense than the next 10 nations combined. At this point, empires are still strong. They still look powerful. But beneath the surface, the numbers stop adding up. The system can't sustain itself forever. And when taxes can't cover the bills, leaders turn to something far more dangerous: money printing. Instead of fixing the problem, they manipulate the currency. They debase it. They borrow and print to keep the illusion of prosperity alive. Spain did it by diluting its silver coins with cheaper metals. Britain did it by abandoning the gold standard again and again. The Soviets did it by printing rubles until the shelves were empty. The US entered this stage in 1971, when the dollar was officially detached from gold. Since then, the money supply has exploded. During COVID alone, 40% of all US dollars ever created were printed in just 2 years. It creates a short-term sense of wealth, but it's an illusion. And what happens next is predictable. When you debase money, wealth flows to those closest to the source, the financial class, the insiders, the politically connected. Everyone else struggles just to stay afloat. That's stage 3, wealth concentration and social fracture. Spain's nobles and clergy got richer while the peasants starved. Britain's elites thrived while its industrial workers collapsed into poverty between the wars. The Soviet Union created an elite class, the party insiders, who had everything, while ordinary citizens waited in lines for bread. In modern America, the same pattern is visible. Productivity has risen dramatically since the 70s, but wages have barely moved. CEOs now earn hundreds of times more than their employees. The middle class is shrinking. The top 1% owns more wealth than the entire bottom half of the country combined. And when people feel the game is rigged, society fractures. Trust erodes first in government, then in media, then in each other. Politics becomes tribal, bitter, and zero-sum. That's when stage 4 begins. This is the point of no return. It's when the institutions that made the empire strong start to rot from within. Governments can't pass budgets. Agencies become politicized. Bureaucracies grow massive but ineffective. The justice system loses credibility. Infrastructure falls apart. Spain's monarchy couldn't collect taxes or control its own provinces. Britain's empire looked enormous on paper but was ungovernable after World War II. The Soviet Union's institutions collapsed in real time. By 1991, nothing worked, and the system dissolved overnight. And in the United States today, you can see the same warning lights flashing. Congress is gridlocked. Public trust in the Supreme Court and the media is at record lows. Federal agencies contradict each other. Infrastructure is failing. Healthcare costs double what other nations pay, yet outcomes are worse. Education spending climbs, but performance declines. Most alarming of all, legitimacy has eroded. When half a nation believes elections are rigged, regardless of the outcome, the center cannot hold. At that point, history shows what happens next. The financial system snaps, the currency crisis hits, and social order begins to break down. Spain defaulted again and again until its currency became worthless. Britain's pound lost its global reserve status, forcing humiliating IMF bailouts. The Soviet ruble collapsed completely, wiping out life savings overnight. For the US, the warning signs are there. The dollar has lost most of its value since 1971. The debt has passed $34 trillion. Foreign nations are beginning to trade outside the dollar system. Reserve currencies tend to last about a century. The dollar's reign is at 80 years and counting. When the financial core goes, the social order soon follows. Spain's empire erupted in rebellion. Britain faced riots and extremism in the interwar years. The Soviet Union broke into 15 pieces amid economic chaos and war. In America, polarization is deeper than at any time since the 1860s. Both sides view each other as existential threats. Violence at protests is increasing. People openly talk about secession. When an empire reaches this point, collapse accelerates. That's stage 5, the tipping point. It's the moment when decades of slow decline turn into a sudden breakdown. Spain's took 50 years. Britain's happened in 1 generation. The Soviet Union's in just 6 years. For America, the trigger could be anything. A debt crisis, a war, a constitutional breakdown, or something completely unexpected. But history shows that once stage 4 sets in, the collapse always comes faster than anyone believes possible. And when it does, the world changes overnight. The nation that emerges afterwards still exists, but smaller, poorer, and stripped of its global power. The people who lived through it never forget the shock. No empire has ever thought it was collapsing while it happened. Spaniards in 1630 thought their empire was eternal. Britons in 1960 believed theirs would last forever. Soviets in 1985 laughed at the idea their system could fall apart. And yet, they all did. The truth is that the same forces that make an empire strong military might, currency dominance, social cohesion, eventually turn into the very things that drag it down. Overconfidence becomes overreach. Prosperity becomes debt. Unity becomes division. The United States still has choices. Individuals always do. People who see the pattern early can prepare. They can build resilience, move their resources, strengthen communities, and focus on what really matters. Empires collapse, but people survive. The pattern is real. The only question is whether enough of us recognize it in time. If this opened your eyes, hit like, share it, and subscribe for more deep dives into how history really works. And tell me in the comments, what stage do you think America is in right now? And do you believe the pattern can be broken before it's too late?